The 14th year of Chenghua. Chapter 92. The Art of Drinking Vinegar. After his bout of being startled, Tang Fan set down his chopsticks, wiped off his mouth, and said to himself with a smile, "So that's how it is. Zhongjing Hall is indeed a spot of interest, so I'll go check it out, too." Sui Zhou had never been fond of being a busybody, so him running off to Zhongjing Hall on his own initiative was quite surprising to Tang Fan. Inevitably, he remembered that Miss Du whom he had met in the apothecary yesterday. She was beautiful, well-spoken, and at the age where she was like a flower. Were Sui Zhou to be moved, that would not be strange in the least. No matter how cold he was in character, Envoy Sui was, after all, a normal man. However, the issue here was that there were way more exceptional women in the capital than Miss Du. His cousin from his uncle's side was one example, and she still held a candle for him. Sui Zhou had no reason to not consider his childhood sweetheart of a cousin, yet he solely focused on Miss Du, whose face was all he knew. Did she have some particularity that was hard to forget? Tang Fan's mind swirled with confused thoughts and he became slightly curious at heart. After breakfast, he sauntered over to Zhongjing Hall. The hall appeared to be busy on the daily. Yesterday, it had throngs of people, and today, it was still packed so full. It was practically watertight. The line went out the door, with even the business of the bun vendor next door picking up. Many that had rushed over for a checkup hadn't had the time to eat lunch, so they would buy a couple of buns to eat while they waited in line, killing two birds with one stone. People next to him were chatting in whispers, which Tang Fan couldn't help but stick an ear out to. They said that Dr. Du himself was sitting in the hall today, and his medical knowledge was superb, which was why a particularly large amount of people had come here. He hadn't come for a checkup, so he squeezed through the queue to head straight into the main hall. As soon as he did so, he saw stars as the wide open area was just as packed full. How was he supposed to spot Sui Zhou? While Tang Fan was looking all over the place, a worker that was greeting guests walked up to speak to him. "Pardon me, customer. Are you wanting a checkup, or to pick up medicine? If it's a checkup, please wait in the line outside. If it's a pickup, please hand the prescription to me." The instant he saw him, Tang Fan smiled. "Why, don't you remember me?" Seeing the other's blank face, he reminded, "My arm was dislocated yesterday, so I came to see you all." The worker recalled this. Vaguely remembering that Tang Fan's status seemed to not be low, he quickly smiled. "Sir, you've come here for? Your miss gave me medicine yesterday, so I came today specifically to thank her." The other had a realization. "She happens to be in today. This way, please." The two squeezed past the clamoring crowd, the worker bringing him to the other side of the main hall. Only then did Tang Fan see that Miss Du was also seeing patients today. She had simply been blocked by other people and was also seated, making her invisible for a short moment. Everyone was seated in the hall, but there were a lot less patients near her than her father. There was also a beaded curtain separating her, thus marking it as its own area. The majority of those getting check-up with her were women. Tang Fan also caught sight of that person who left early this morning, Sui Zhou, sitting in a chair beyond the curtain, holding a book in hand that he appeared to be very earnestly reading. The worker wanted to lead him over to Miss Du, but Tang Fan stopped him and let him go do his own work. Due to there being far too many people all around that were coming and going, neither Miss Du nor Sui Zhou noticed Tang Fan's arrival. A little while later, a middle-aged man with a doctorly appearance came to take over. Miss Du rose and said a few things to him. Then left her spot, lifted the curtain, and walked over to Sui Zhou, talking with a smile. Sui Zhou looked up, seeming to want to answer her, only to spot Tang Fan in passing. As the two had noticed him, Tang Fan could only rub his nose and come on over. Du Gui'er was a bit surprised. "Master Tang." After yesterday's scramble, she had learned his surname from Meng Xi. Tang Fan smiled in greeting. Hello, Miss Du. The medicine you gifted me yesterday has made my face as flawless as white jade, like it had been before. I came here to give my thanks. Had those words been said by the man beside him, they would have failed to be flighty, but when they came out of Tang Fan's mouth, they were completely elegant. Du Gui'er could help but laugh. You are too polite, Master Tang. It's good that you're fine now. Sui Zhou didn't appear to like watching this play of them talking and laughing. You don't need to go to Wang Zhi's today, he asked like the wet blanket he was, speaking like his great time had been interrupted. Tang Fan couldn't help but shoot him a look. What would I go there for? I got slapped yesterday, so why would I run over to get slapped again today? I'm never going there again. Sui Zhou nodded, said nothing else, then turned right to Du Gui'er. Didn't you say that you were going to teach me to identify medicinal plants? Are you free now? She smiled. Dr. Tian came, I let him take over. Where did you want to start from? Anything is fine. You can take the lead. Their progress had already reached this point? Had he missed something? Tang Fan couldn't help but widen his eyes slightly. Sui Zhou and Du Gui'er appeared to not notice his expression, getting up one after the other to walk over to a medicine cabinet. Taking advantage of the time Du Gui'er was walking in front, Tang Fan couldn't resist grabbing Sui Zhou's sleeve and tugging him back towards him. How come I never knew before that you were interested in medicine? Against expectations, Sui Zhou's answer made him choke half to death. I'm interested now. Before they could speak more, Du Gui'er turned around. Sir Sui. Sui Zhou's sleeve gently slipped out of Tang Fan's hand. You can just call me by my courtesy, Huang Chuan. Du Gui'er's cheeks lightly flushed. I'll just call you Brother Sui. Sui Zhou hummed, not objecting. The hall's collection of medicine was quite complete, the tall medicinal cabinet densely embedded with drawers. Each had a label for a material's name pasted on them. In order to not get in the way of people helping patients get their medicine, Du Gui'er chose a spot to the side to stand at. I can't reach the drawers that are too high up, so they'll need a ladder. Let's start identifying them from the bottom. Sui Zhou gave a nod. All right. She opened a drawer, grabbed a bit of what was inside, placed it into her other palm, then passed it to Sui Zhou, allowing him to take in its shape and smell. She also succinctly described the material's properties and usages, as well as some contraindications and such. Sui Zhou, surprisingly, listened very studiously, sometimes even asking questions. One taught, one learned, their minds having no other distractions. Even in this cacophonous environment, they seemed to be in exceptional harmony. Tang Fan, meanwhile, suddenly felt like he had turned into an eyesore just standing there. Were it not for his complete understanding of Sui Zhou, he would genuinely believe that the other was planning to open an apothecary in the capital. Though, if Sui Zhou wasn't planning to do that, why did he show so much interest in identifying materials all of a sudden? During Tang Fan's pondering, Du Gui'er grabbed two other materials from two other drawers. These are turmeric and quasi-turmeric. Both have similar medicinal properties and can promote blood plus Qi circulation, but while turmeric comes from turmeric rhizomes, quasi-turmeric comes from wild turmeric rhizomes, which are grown in Zhejiang. The difference between them is that turmeric can treat pains caused by blood clots in the chest, while quasi-turmeric is chiefly used to treat pain caused by arthritis. Different physiologies, Sui Zhou said thoughtfully. She smiled and nodded. That's right. So, even though they have similar effects, the symptoms they treat are quite different. Someone with shallow medical knowledge could easily misuse them, which would end up causing huge problems. Clever by nature and faintly sensing that Sui Zhou seemed to have something of an interest in her, she wanted to tease him with the line of "Do you want to revere me as a mentor?" only to catch out of the corner of her eye that Tang Fan was standing nearby. Quite a bit embarrassed, she could only swallow the jest back down, put the materials back into the drawers, and bring two more types out. These are mountain and golden honeysuckle. Someone nearby got to it first. Du Guier startled, then smiled. Correct. Mountain honeysuckle is mostly located in the south. Its shape is extremely similar to golden honeysuckle. Few northerners can identify it, yet you have such profound knowledge of pharmacology, Sir Tang. Tang Fan beamed, fixing his sleeves. I can't claim that my knowledge is profound. I grew up in the south, so that's why I knew that. Sui Zhou pat him on the shoulder. Tang Fan looked at him, confused. The 3 delicacy buns at the shop next door are pretty good. How about you go try them? You called me your bosom friend, but now that you have a fair lady in your sights, you're trying to get me to leave? Master Tang thought as much sourly but didn't show it on his face, merely looking back at him innocently. No thanks, I'm quite full from breakfast. You can go buy it if you're hungry, and I'll just stay here with Miss Du. I want to learn pharmaceutics from her, too. Du Guier had no belief that she had suddenly become excellent enough to get 2 young talents from the capital interested in her, and so particularly flattering to her, at the same time. She observed the conversation between Sui Zhou and Tang Fan, getting the overall feeling that there were words within their words, a lot of unsaid implications therein. Miss Du, the previous worker was heard to shout outside. He quickly crowded in with a middle-aged woman, panting. Miss, Xing is here. Du Guier turned her head with a smile on her face, clearly familiar with the woman in front of her. You've come for medicine again, Sister Xing. Yes, Xing smiled awkwardly. I'm troubling you again. If you're busy, I can wait. Her clothes were plain, no different from any woman of common origin on the streets. Despite seeming to be not that old, the deep lines at the corners of her eyes and mouth betrayed the fact that she had endured hardships for an extended period of time. It's fine. You're a regular, so you need extra special care. Miss Du warmly answered. Did you bring the prescription? I did. Xing repeated, taking out a wrinkled piece of paper from a pocket. Miss Du looked down and quickly glanced it over. Ox knee, licorice root, cinnamon twig, this is a prescription for the treatment of arthritis. Does Uncle Jiang's back and legs acting up again? The woman sighed. Yes. He didn't listen to me last time and insisted upon going up the mountain to gather herbs. As a result, it rained that day, trapping him in the mountains, and this problem arose when he came back. And, you need to persuade him. He isn't that young anymore, Miss Du dissented. How can he be going up the mountain to forage? What would happen if he fell? Xing bowed her head. I said as much too, but he wouldn't listen to me. Miss Du shook her head, not saying anything else on it. Wait here for a moment, I'll get you the medicine. It'll be done quick. Am I making 6 doses this time? The other quickly took money out. Your uncle said he wanted 9 doses, so that he could take a little more and slowly get better. Miss Du pushed the money back, smiling. Very well, I'll make 9. Don't hand money to me, else father will scold me later. How would that do? If you don't take it, I won't dare to ever come again, Xing said, at a loss. Your uncle would definitely scold me to death if he ever learned of it. While the two of them were having a pushing match, Tang Fan nudged Sui Zhou, chuckling. Miss Du isn't that gorgeous, but she's still really pretty. She is also skilled in medicine and has a kind heart. It's rare for our Jinyi envoy to be moved by mundane feelings. Do you want me to help be a go-between? Sui Zhou didn't refute that phrasing of moved by mundane feelings, only saying, don't mess around. Tang Fan grinned. How am I messing around? Do you not believe that I could coax her into having eyes on you? She isn't like ordinary women. Hearing this, Tang Fan couldn't help but peer at him. Even though Sui Zhou's face was as plain as ever, in Tang Fan's view, he felt that there was a bit of tenderness within that dullness. No wonder he had rushed over here at daybreak. He was actually that affected? Du Guier and Anxing's shoving match came to a conclusion, with the former accepting half of the payment but giving the other half back. Anxing could only thank her repeatedly, expression filled with gratitude, then follow the worker off to get the medicine. Miss Du, despite the saying that only benevolent sorts can practice medicine, Zhongjing Hall is not a charity. Why did you only charge her half? Tang Fan wondered. Du Guier sighed. Anxing's husband, Uncle Zhang, used to be one of our doctors. Due to poor health, he's no longer practicing and went to rural Guangling County to retire. Unexpectedly, his son went into the mountains to gather herbs not too long ago, yet never came back. He was reportedly never found, either, so it's possible that a wild animal ran away with him in its mouth. The older couple was left behind to depend on each other. As Uncle Zhang is himself a doctor, if he ever feels unwell, he makes all of his own prescriptions, then comes to us to fetch the materials. Life hasn't passed easily for them. The money Anxing has must have been in exchange for something at the pawn shop on the corner. That's why I take less, if I can. You have a heart and principles of benevolence. You're destined to become a famed doctor someday, he praised. Her face flushed. I dare not accept your compliment, Master Tang. Who has ever heard of a woman being able to become a famed doctor these days? I simply follow my father's teachings and act according to my conscience. Your words err, Miss Du. You haven't mentioned the Han Dynasty's Yishuo, or the Song Dynasty's Lady Zhang. They were both famous female doctors of their generations. What difference is there between men and women? Who didn't want to hear flattery? That was saying nothing of the fact that Tang Fan's words had indeed gotten to the bottom of Du Guier's heart. In spite of her silence, there was happiness upon her face. Sui Zhou couldn't stand to see Tang Fan cajoling a young maiden. There's a lot of people here. Tea and snacks are over there. Go and sit for now. Wait for me to meet up with you. Tang Fan wanted to say that he wasn't hungry, but under Sui Zhou's focused gaze, he could only cough lightly. Fine. Take your time chatting. On the table were dried apricots and milk vetroot pastries. Zhongjing Hall was worthy of being a land of medicine, as even its snacks clearly had a healthy tinge. Tang Fan picked up a piece and tried it, but felt that even though it was a little sweet, it wasn't as delicious as he had imagined it would be. While taking small bites, he strolled for the entryway out of pure boredom. Anxing, who had just been speaking with Du Guier, walked past him carrying medicine, not noticing him at all. He stood at the doorway, watching her leave the apothecary with a rushed gait, then quickly vanish around the street corner. It looked like she was heading towards the west gate. At exactly that same moment, someone walked out of the pawn shop at the street corner. Tang Fan finished off the final bite of pastry, wiping the crumbs off of his hands. Right as he thought to turn around and go back in, he got a passing glance at the man out of the corner of his eye. His memory wasn't so good that he would never forget anything, but he seldom forgot people he had seen before. He paused, swiftly recalling the other's identity. The steward of the Commandant estate? He remembered that the steward's surname was also Wang. He had been following Wang Yu for years and was utmost loyal to him. When Tang Fan had initially visited the Commandant estate, Wang Yu had even specially introduced him. Steward Wang had currently come out of a pawn shop, but his mannerisms did not resemble their typical easiness. He looked kind of like he was up to no good. Tang Fan's eyes automatically chased him. He departed Zhongjing Hall, following him. When passing the pawn shop, he took a deliberate look inside, and happened to meet with the line of sight of someone that looked like a shopkeeper inside. Not able to make out anything amiss, he turned away and concentrated on following Steward Wang. The other's pace was quick, and by the shelter of the crowd, he soon got a good distance away from Tang Fan. The latter had to pick up the pace and train his eyes ahead in order to prevent himself from losing the trail. To tell the truth, he had no idea why he was persistently following Steward Wang. Everyone had times when finances were tight, and it was very common to pawn things. The steward's act was not at all inappropriate. And yet, starting from when he had been standing in the apothecary doorway, he had been having a weird feeling that he couldn't shake off, like he had missed out on some very important information. He had no time to think carefully on that now. All he could do was set his mind on following the one ahead. Perhaps Steward Wang had noticed that someone was tailing him, as Tang Fan saw his pace suddenly slow down, after which he dashed into an alley next to him. Frowning slightly, Tang Fan rushed up and turned into the alley as well. It was quite narrow with only one path to take, and required a right turn a few steps ahead. After taking that turn, he discovered a dead end, no exit around. He was shocked, immediately realizing that the other party must have noticed him following. Without another thought, he swiftly turned and walked back out. The populated street was close enough to touch. Before he could breathe a sigh of relief, though, a figure dashed into the entrance of the alley. His counterpart bounced forwards, looking to have something sharp in hand. Tang Fan subconsciously dodged to the side, back slamming hard into the dirt wall, which was pursued by a sharp pain on his arm. He couldn't help but cry out in pain, while the other rushed up, felt about him randomly, then ran off once done. Since the thief held a dagger, Tang Fan couldn't stop him, only able to helplessly look on as the man snatched his coin purse and left abruptly. So, all that fuss had been just to rob him? Sir Tang was dumbstruck, until he heard someone cry out in surprise next to him. "Little brother, your arm is bleeding." He inclined his head to find that the arm that had been dislocated just yesterday had a fresh injury. There was a slash on it, now. It didn't get down to the muscle and bones, but blood flowed out of it, dyeing his sleeve dark in no time at all. Who had he angered for this? Was his arm the bane of everyone's existence, to the point that they all found it displeasing to the eye? Feeling that the wound wasn't that serious, he declined the offers of passers-by to go with him to the apothecary, and walked all the way to Zhongjing Hall while covering the gash on his arm. He hadn't felt this to be such a long trek coming here, but on the trip back, he started panting, losing some amount of blood. By the time he got back, leaning against the hall's doorframe, he was a little dizzy. That same worker greeted him again. Upon seeing that Tang Fan had gone out for no more than a minute yet had returned with a wound, he went pale with shock, busily stepping forth to support him. "What in the world did you leave for? How did you get hurt? Hurry. Miss Du. Miss Du." The people in the hall conscientiously made a path for them. Du Guier bolted over when she heard the news. As soon as she saw this situation, she quickly said, "Into the back hall, now. There's bandages and medicine there, stop the bleeding before anything else." The worker speedily helped Tang Fan into the back hall. Sui Zhou had already caught sight of the scene on his end, locating bandages and medicine in a wink. Without another word, he half removed Tang Fan's inner and outer robes, then began to help him treat the wound. Du Guier had wanted to come in, but upon glimpsing this, she swiftly avoided doing so. This had clearly not been Tang Fan's fault, but seeing how Sui Zhou looked silent and with tightly pressed together lips as he bowed his head to apply medicine and bandages gave him some baseless guilt. He laughed dryly, attempting to lighten up the steeply declined mood. "It was just a slash from a knife, it's no big." The word deal was unconsciously swallowed back down when his counterpart looked up at him. Sui Zhou watched until the blood was no longer oozing out, yet his knitted brows did not relax. He simply continued to scatter fine powder meticulously and evenly over it. A prickling, numbing sensation caused Tang Fan to suck in a cold breath, though he could detect that the medicinal powder was very effective. The wound was slowly coming together with its active agents, at the very least. Blood had been flowing non-stop since the beginning, but it was only lightly seeping out now. "Bear with it." Sui Zhou believed that he was uncomfortable, his actions gentling a little. "This medicine is worth a considerable amount. Don't throw all that money to the ground, economize a bit. Miss Du will feel distressed later, otherwise, Tang Fan had to warn him. Sui Zhou didn't even look up. It isn't your money being spent. Was he mad, or something? Sui Zhou stared at the wound closing up until he felt that it was good enough, after which he wound the bandages around it fully. Runking. Seeing the other's serious face, Tang Fan couldn't help but sit up straight. There's a reason I'm getting close to Miss Du, Sui Zhou said, voice low. The back hall had no one else in it, yet his voice wasn't too loud. Only the two of them could hear. The Du family dominates the market on the supplies needed by the army. When they transport materials in and out of the city gates, they don't need to undergo extra checks, so if someone wanted to utilize that detail to get something done, it would be easy to. Don't be angry. Tang Fan felt awkward. I'm not angry. Sui Zhou looked at him with a don't even try to justify yourself expression. Tang Fan coughed lightly, slightly guilty, and gave an embarrassed smile. All right, Guang Chuan, you don't need to explain so much to me. I didn't mistake you as someone who would abandon their friends in the face of a beauty. The other's eyes showed a bit of exasperation, though Tang Fan didn't have time to guess at what he was exasperated about before the man resumed his typical placidness. A little while later, Miss Du's voice came from outside. Brother Sui, how is he? Sui Zhou helped Tang Fan put his clothes back on. Luckily, there's nothing serious. You can come in. The door was pushed open. Du Gui'er lifted the bead curtain, saw Tang Fan seated there tidily, and sighed in relief. Master Tang, do you want me to have Dr. Tian check your pulse? I can have medicine made for you to recuperate with. Tang Fan smiled. No need. An occasional bit of bleeding won't hurt. He's averse to hardship, Sui Zhou butt in. Du Gui'er restrained her laugh. Eat some more jujubes and such when you're free every day to promote blood regeneration, then. You can also stew jujubes and carp together. Tang Fan felt that his formerly lofty image had been completely ruined by Sui Zhou's paltry words. Thank you, Miss Du, he was forced to weakly say. With Tang Fan being injured, Sui Zhou naturally wasn't going to remain in the apothecary, thus saying goodbye to Du Gui'er, then leaving with Tang Fan. Once they left, he asked, how did you get hurt? Tang Fan didn't answer directly. Tell Wang Ji to investigate Steward Wang of Wang Yu's estate. Sui Zhou stared. Why? Tang Fan explained the sequence of events of him tailing the steward, encountering a mugger, then getting slashed, ending it with, the thief had only robbed me, but the timing of that really feels too coincidental. Did you get a good look at his appearance? Tang Fan nodded. I can sketch it when we get back. You can start a two-front investigation. It isn't convenient for Wang Ji to go out in the open, so I'll have to trouble you. Sui Zhou brought him back to the post house, then headed to Wang Ji's estate alone. This outing had taken most of the day. For the sake of awaiting Sui Zhou's return, Tang Fan stayed in his room, only to end up dozing off unwittingly. It wasn't until midnight that he sensed what seemed to be movement beside him, and he opened his eyes groggily. Back, he asked. He thought to sit up using his arms as supports, but unanticipatedly bumped his wound, making him jolt in a pain that woke him up at once. Don't get up, Sui Zhou said. He shed his outer robe, blew out the candle, then got onto the bed, laying down on the outer side. How'd it go? Tang Fan asked, while actively shifting inwards to make more room for him. The thief that hurt you was found. Dead. That piece of unexpected news startled Tang Fan, but he noticed how exhausted Sui Zhou looked. We'll talk more about it tomorrow. Sui Zhou hummed and shut his eyes. His breathing turned long and slow in short order. Tang Fan was occupied with turning the news Sui Zhou had just given him over in his head, falling asleep without realizing it. For one night, there were no words. The next day, the two of them rose early. After freshening up, Tang Fan sat at a table, about to lift up his cup of soy milk and drink when Wang Zhi stopped by. End chapter. The 14th year of Chenghua. Chapter 93. Jewel's attack. No one would have imagined that Wang Zhi, who held overwhelming power in all of Datong and could make people cower once they saw him, would show up in such a manner. When Peng Qi led him in, Tang Fan didn't notice the man in plain clothes behind him, simply smiling and calling out, "Lao Peng, have you had breakfast yet? Come and eat with us." "What time is it? You're still eating? You trying to fatten yourself to death?" a familiar voice came from behind Peng Qi. Tang Fan nearly snorted his sip of soy milk out of his nose, coughing over and over. Sui Zhou rubbed his back to help him regulate his breathing, glancing over with a cold eye. "You're dressed like you're up to no good." Wang Zhi strode out from behind Peng Qi, sat right down at the table, and smiled in anger at that. "If I wasn't afraid of being found out, why would I need to disguise myself like this?" No longer coughing, Tang Fan looked at the doorway. "Where's Ding Rong? Does he know that you're out?" "No, I distracted him. Though, speaking of which, I don't understand why you would want me to hide from even him. He's been following me for years, I have no need to doubt his devotion. He's plenty trustworthy. Before the truth is made clear, everyone is suspicious. If I didn't know that you wouldn't do something like this, your suspiciousness is even greater than Ding Rong's or anyone else's, actually." Wang Zhi glared at him. "When have I ever been suspicious?" Tang Fan drank down all the soy milk, accepted the damp handkerchief Sui Zhou passed over, and wiped his mouth off. "First of all, you are Datong's defending supervisor, you have immense authority in Datong City, and no one can control you, not even Wang Yu. If you wanted to convey information, it would be fairly easy. Second, when I was still in the capital, I heard that someone denounced you and Wang Yu for communicating with the Tartars, claiming that your previous victories all arose from their surrender, whereupon you provided them with cloth, horses, money, and food in return for the transaction." "Who said that? He must have sinister intent." Wang Zhi shouted, enraged. "Sinister intent, indeed. But don't think that I'm just spouting alarmist rhetoric. The most fetching trees in the woods will be ravaged by the wind, and your performance in Datong has been too eye-catching. Many don't want to see you get promoted and rise up in the world, so they have to find ways to cause you to stumble a little. I saw no lack of memorials like these while in the inspectorate. Since so many don't want you all to establish merits, nor watch you return to the capital, the best method for them is to blacken your names and get you removed from your posts." Seeing that Wang Zhi was remaining quiet, he continued on. "There is no way Wang Yu and you have communicated with the enemy, of course, but just because I have faith in you doesn't mean that others do. Also, can you completely guarantee that the servants at both of your sides are all unconditionally loyal? Thank you for trusting in me. Since you followed my words exactly, I will do my best to investigate this to avoid the war from being dragged out." Tang Fan finished his righteous speech. Before Wang Zhi was allowed to get slightest bit emotional about having a good friend, though, he picked up a bun and chomped on it. "All right, I'll have to bother you with talking about what happened yesterday." Wang Zhi's hand itched a little witnessing this, but because Sui Zhou was nearby, he couldn't beat him up again, so he just glared. "We checked out Steward Wang. The reason he went to the pawn shop yesterday was because of poor cash flow for him recently, which resulted in him pawning things Wang Yu had gifted him." At that, Tang Fan showed a puzzled look. "He's always been a bit of a gambler and frequently owes gambling debts, but the amount is never large. The gambling den was pressuring him hard and he didn't want to trouble Wang Yu with it. That's why he went pawning." Tang Fan swallowed a bite, then drank down soy milk, smiling at the one next to him that had poured more for him, expressing his thanks. "Did he have dubious movements upon entry, then?" We haven't noticed any for right now. Why did you keep an eye on him? Tang Fan took another bite. When I was following him, I encountered a thief that stole from me, who happened to delay just enough time so that I couldn't get to trailing him again. Tell me, how could that be a coincidence? Even so, when the thief was located yesterday, he was already dead. How did he die? I have to ask you about that. Tang Fan blinked. Huh. At his time of death, he was still clutching your coin purse. The coroner said that the silver was daubed with poison. The thief had put the silver in his mouth to verify their authenticity, ended up ingesting the toxin, and fell over dead on the spot. The silver ingots cast by the government were made of the purest silver and had government stamps on their surfaces, but they were generally in the possession of rich households, which would elect to store them away and spend the less pure ones, first. At the level of civilian circulation, because these silvers were too heavy, they would get pinched into several chunks by weight. There was no lack of privately cast tails amongst the populace, but their quality was certainly not comparable to government-issued silver. To distinguish between purities and the authenticity of silver, the simplest and easiest method was to bite on it. All this talk, and it wound back around to me. Where's the silver? Did you bring it? Wang Ji brought out a small bundle wrapped in a handkerchief, which he opened, revealing the few pieces of silver within. Which are poisoned. Take a guess. Tang Fan silently glanced at him, then pointed at the two largest pieces amongst them. Those two aren't mine. I see. Those are the ones smeared with poison. If you shine the light of the sun on them, you can see that there's a layer of gray, foggy color on their surfaces. Who gave these to him? All he did was rob me. What did he know that would cause someone to silence him? The silent Suizhou suddenly spoke. You just said that he chose the coincidental time of you following Steward Wang. Could it be that the steward, in order to keep you from catching up to him, found a thief to steal from you, then killed him to prevent him from confessing? Tang Fan shook his head. That's too obvious and not really necessary. Steward Wang was walking so quickly, I was almost unable to keep up with him. Why would he specifically find someone to draw me away? It doesn't make sense. Then, he looked at Wang Ji. Can you find Steward Wang for questioning? It would be best not to. As you said, we don't know who the traitor actually is, and Wang Yu isn't in Datong right now. If I supersede him and go straight into apprehending one of his people, it wouldn't be excessive to say that it could easily alert the enemy. Still, having said that, I feel like it isn't too likely that Steward Wang did such a thing, because he used to be Wang Yu's bodyguard during his youth. Due to Wang Yu having suffered many injuries, he treats him like family. There's no need for him to betray Wang Yu. I also already sent people to investigate him, and he has no suspicious behaviors aside from going to the gambling den on occasion. Tang Fan paced around the room. If it wasn't Steward Wang, then it had to be someone else, but what was with that coincidence? What was the thief's murderer trying to cover up? He remembered standing at the apothecary's entryway, watching and seeing leave, then catching sight of Steward Wang. He abruptly turned to look at Wang Ji. And seeing, he blurted out. Wang Ji was confused. What? And seeing was acting weird. Miss Du clearly stated that she lives in rural Guangling County. When leaving the city, she should go from the south or east gate, and she said that her husband was waiting at home for her to decoct medicine. Yet, after she went out, she headed west. Suizhou gave it thought. Maybe she remembered something she forgot to buy, so she made a special detour to the city's west. Tang Fan nodded. That's possible too, but I just recalled something else. Now, I just need to confirm my guess. Wang Ji wanted to catch the traitor more than anyone else here. What's your guess? Tang Fan looked to Suizhou. Prescriptions brought in by each customer are typically copied by the apothecary. Can you go get Anseings from Miss Du? I can, but before it can be proved that she isn't guilty herself, getting the prescription will definitely cause her to have doubts and make unnecessary guesses. If she has a connection to the traitor, that might alert the enemy. Tang Fan was startled, but that seemed to be about right, when he thought about it. He became a little vexed. It isn't impossible, though, Sui Zhou said, gaze turning towards Wang Ji. Tang Fan hummed. Just wait for it. I'll get you the prescription tomorrow. Wang Ji said, suddenly sounding malicious. I can't stay here for too long. I'm leaving. Not waiting for the others to react, he got up and went straight out. Tang Fan was still a bit confused and at a loss. What riddle are you two spinning? Sui Zhou smiled lightly. Things will be fine, as long as Zhongjing Hall catches fire or suffers theft. Theft would be a bit of a hassle, however, since the apothecary would certainly be watched at night. As stealing the prescription isn't too convenient, starting a fire would be much easier. Leaving something like this to him is most suitable. He ended that with seamlessly throwing shade at Wang Ji. Tang Fan was speechless. That method was certainly not something he would ever think up. You two really are. He tried to consider his wording, barely managing to change unethical into creative. You've overpraised me. The soy milk got cold, don't drink it. Sui Zhou casually took the cup out of his hand, replacing it with a bun. Eunuch Wang did act swiftly. At daybreak the next morning, Tang Fan and Sui Zhou heard that Zhongjing Hall had caught fire last night. Thankfully, it had been discovered early and no lives had been lost, just some herbs, files, and prescriptions, which was a great blessing within this misfortune. In result, a signboard was hanging in front of the hall today that declared the business closed, while Du Gui'er was currently leading people in the cleanup. Tang Fan and Sui Zhou did not leave, merely spending time chatting in the inn. At noontime, Peng Qi returned from the outside, in addition to bringing in a huge pile of snacks that Tang Fan had instructed him to buy. He had a couple prescriptions. Tang Fan looked them over. As it turned out, An Xing had gone to get supplies from the hall several times before. There were 5 prescriptions in total, each clearly sorted according to the dates on them. Look here, Tang Fan said, pointing at the papers. This is strange. The materials in these prescriptions are all different and the symptoms they treat are all completely different, too. No matter how frail and sickly someone is, there's no way that they would get completely different illnesses every time. Sui Zhou picked one sheet up. Judging from the date, it ought to be the one An Xing had gotten the time before last. What do they treat? He knew that Tang Fan was well-read, had dipped into a wide range of subjects, and had a smattering of knowledge about medicine. It could not be said that he had reached the extent where he could accept patients, but it was sufficient enough for him to be able to distinguish medicinal properties and illnesses from prescriptions. Chuanxiang, thorawax root, angelica root, red nutsage, peony root, bush cherry seed, white mustard, licorice root, Tang Fan recited aloud, frowning a bit. This is a prescription for megrim dispersant. Megrim dispersant. It's an ancient recipe that specially treats migraines. Wait, where in the prefecture did the Tartars go last time? Pianguan County. White and slender knuckles rapped against the table. Tang Fan mumbled the name of Pianguan County over and over again. Pianguan, side pass, it's named after a pass in its scope. That pass is called Pian Pass, also known as Piantu Pass. The two exchanged glances. Tang Fan quickly grabbed the most recent prescription. Ox knee, licorice root, golden honeysuckle, false starwort, cinnamon twig, goji, oyster, sand seed. This one ought to primarily be for nourishing the stomach, warming the spleen, and promoting blood and qi circulation. Yesterday, An Xing said that because her husband had been in the mountains all night, he caught a chill and now has joint problems, so he self-prescribed this. It fits the symptoms, and there's no illusion in it. He creased his brow, feeling that this discovery was just a coincidence. While he rubbed his forehead, thinking hard, Suizhou reacted a bit quicker than him. Ox ni, Huainiu 11. Sanseed, Sharan. Take the first and last characters, and it's Weiren. Tang Fan had an epiphany. Right? The news that Wang Zhi deliberately spread out before happened to say that Huiran County has the weakest military force. Thinking about it this way, these prescriptions were evidently code. Either the materials used created a signal, or the decoction was taken as a metaphor, all of which were related to military affairs. This method was quite concealed. Firstly, when the entire city had been searched, even if the soldiers had found Aunt Xing's prescription, they would never know that it had hidden information in it. Even Tang Fan, had he not happened to see her at the apothecary yesterday, would not have noticed the ordinary woman. Secondly, the goal of Zhongjing Hall was too conspicuous. Suizhou had also kept an eye on it precisely because of its connection to Wang Yu and that it could come and go freely at the city's gates. As was said, those below large trees enjoyed its shade. With the hall around, as well as those spies that had been caught with hidden letters before, everyone's attention had been diverted. The hidden thread that Aunt Xing was could not have possibly been buried any deeper. Tang Fan grabbed the prescription, then walked about the room. So, the thief that stole my coin purse yesterday, then died, was definitely not a coincidence. There had to be someone instructing him. That instructor was. He suddenly looked at Suizhou. It was the pawn shop's shopkeeper. The other's pupils contracted. What? By means of Aunt Xing, the entire thread was able to be strung together, making Tang Fan a little excited. Yes, that's it. I'm almost positive it's him. Do you remember what Miss Du said yesterday? Every time Aunt Xing comes to fetch medicine, she goes to the pawn shop to pawn things first to get money for the medicine. That pawn shop is located on the corner of the Hall Street, and many people have to pass by it to get there. Yesterday, I saw Steward Wang come out of the shop, and when I caught up, I happened to pass by the doorway, where the shopkeeper saw me. If Steward Wang is fine, then Aunt Xing is the issue. That shopkeeper must have seen me pursuing someone and believed it to be her, so he got that thief to rob me, thus giving Aunt Xing time to throw me off and escape. However, he didn't think that the one I was chasing was actually Steward Wang, and he just ended up exposing himself in his guilty conscience. Regardless of whether his inference was true or not, the suspicion on the shopkeeper was immense. Aunt Xing, Steward Wang, and Tang Fan himself, their only point of intersection was the pawn shop. Suizhou got up. I'll bring people over now. I'm going with you. I heard that Zhongjing Hall caught fire last night. Was anyone killed? No. The worker on night watch found the fire early, and it only burned a few items. But that truly is the Buddha's protection at work. Dr. Du is kind, giving people check-up without payment often. Benevolence is indeed rewarded with benevolence. I'll say. When that fire broke out in the city's east last time, it burned all 5 members of a family to death in it. That scene was tragic, tisk I didn't dare to take a second look at it. Shopkeep Jin, as I see it, your pawn shop has a good location and practice. With Zhongjing Hall here, those that don't have the money to get a checkup will come here to pawn stuff. Listening to his neighbor go on and on, Shopkeep Jin speedily tallied up on his abacus without even looking up. According to what you said, is it that as long as my business is doing well, yours will be doing poorly? Haha. Thanks to Zhongjing Hall's blessing, no one is doing poorly. Good times are ahead. As long as the Tartars don't show up in a few days, everyone will have a peaceful life, the shopkeeper of the fabric store nearby answered with a grin. Speaking of which, if you count the days out, aren't they about arrive, said the jewelry shopkeeper, who was opposite the fabric store. You're a freak. You're scared when they get here, yet you're still looking forward to it. Don't say that. Whenever spring came before, the Tartars would always come over to loot. If they don't come, I'll forever have my heart in my throat. I need to hear that they're coming so that I can be at ease. They ought to be too afraid to come here, Shopkeep Jin spoke up, never pausing in his actions, the abacus making clacking sounds. Since we have Commandant Wang overseeing our datang, the Tartars will have to hold back a little. Did you not hear that Commandant Wang and Eunuch Wang had a falling out a little bit ago and he brought people out to Yunchuan Post in a fit of anger? Oi, so senseless, what was the point of it? The jewelry shopkeeper shook his head. You just don't understand. Bureaucracy has always been about infighting and killing people without seeing blood, just like us businessmen. We inevitably fight with customers on the regular, and what's the point of it? Fame and fortune, the fabric store owner pouted. Shopkeep Jin finally finished calculating his accounts, raising his head and smiling. That's not what we should be concerned about. Setting our business aside, as long as we can live well, that'll be good. Regardless of whether it's Commandant Wang or Commandant Zhang, the Tartars will come anyways. Aren't we all running off to the countryside? That's not the same, the jewelry shopkeeper said. Last year, I didn't run away. Commandant Wang being here meant the Tartars were too afraid to come into the city. He paused before he finished. The idle chatterers looked towards the outside as several hefty men suddenly came in, causing all of their voices to stop. Shopkeep Jin was startled, quickly hanging a smile upon his face. Gentlemen, dare I ask what business you may have? Would you like to pawn things, or? One glance at their appearances told that these newcomers had no good intentions. There was no way they had come to pawn things at all. The men didn't make a peep as they blocked the doorway, then made a path for two people behind them to come in. Shopkeeper, do you remember me? Tang Fan cheerfully asked. Shopkeep Jin carefully looked him over, then shook his head. I don't. I passed by the door of your shop yesterday. We saw each other's faces. The shopkeeper smiled awkwardly. Well, this old man has a decent memory, but I wouldn't be able to memorize everyone who passes by. Then, are you familiar with Aunt Xing? I am. She often comes here to pawn things. Tang Fan took a handkerchief out of a pocket, then shook 2 pieces of silver out onto the counter. Do you recognize these? Shopkeep Jin smiled bitterly again. You must be making things hard for me on purpose. How could I recognize specific silvers out of the millions handled by the pawn shop each day? Seems that a clear explanation isn't coming out of you for right now. How about you come back with us so you can be nice and thorough? As soon as Tang Fan said that, 2 men came up from behind, then clamped firmly down on Shopkeep Jin at either side, making him unable to move. What are you doing? Datong City has laws to abide. Shopkeep Jin cried out in shock. Aren't you gents being too harsh? If you have any disagreements with him, you can go discuss them with the authorities. This is not the place to resolve private disputes. The jewelry shopkeeper stood up, unable to hold back. The fabric store shopkeeper wanted to silently leave, only to find that the door was blocked. He automatically started shouting. How can you just come in here randomly and arrest people? I personally know the county magistrate. The Chenghua does not need the permission of local authorities to act, Sui Zhou said, stopping everyone's mouths from moving. Once that name was said, it was not only Shopkeep Jin that did, but the other 2 immediately shut up, too, faces gone pale with fear. Sui Zhou ignored their reactions, waving his hand to order the other 2 to be brought away. Tang Fan and he remained in the pawn shop. Tang Fan looked at Shopkeep Jin. What connection does Aunt Xing have with you? Did you get that thief to rob me yesterday? Shopkeep Jin smiled in pain. Sir, the Chenghua shouldn't accuse people so wrongly. This lowly one is a decent shopkeeper. I only work for the owner part-time, being diligent here every day. Why would I know any thieves? As I said, and seeing often comes here to pawn things, so I've come to know her. As for anything else, I really have no idea. Adept in self-restraint, Tang Fan kept on a faint smile. Before we came, we checked out your background. You're not a local, You came here a few years back because you were fleeing famine. Working in Lucky Note pawn shop as a shopkeeper gives you a high monthly salary, yet you don't go drinking or whoring, nor do you even have a wife or children. You're all alone, with no wants nor desires. Were it anyone else, wouldn't you think that they're odd? Your reaction just now actually sold you out. Normal people would be like those too scared, angry and too scared to resist, but you? After hearing us proclaim our identity, you remained calm. Did you never think that if you were too calm, you would just end up exposing yourself? Shopkeep Jin continued to argue. Sir, I'm not a youth in this job. I've experienced much of the ways of the world, so it's natural that I'm a little more level-headed. What's so surprising about that? Tang Fan raised a brow. You've experienced much of the world? Those two shopkeepers also work on this street. Do they not experience the same as you every day? Could it be that they've seen less of the world? Why is it that they flew into a panic yet you remained collected? Why are you talking so much to him? Once we use some torture devices, even the Heavenly Emperor wouldn't be able to stay quiet. Alongside that voice, yet another person walked in from outside. Strangely enough, the Jinyue guarding the doorway did not stop him. Upon seeing the newcomer, Shopkeep Jin finally showed a bizarre expression. To him, regardless of how mighty the Jinyue's fierce reputation was, it paled to Wang Zhi's power of these 2 years in Datong. Many citizens could recognize Supervisor Wang anywhere. A person's name was akin to a tree's shade. As soon as Wang Zhi appeared, even Shopkeep Jin felt fear. Wang Zhi was a straightforward one. Seeing that the other wasn't saying a peep, he simply raised his knee, then specially stomped down onto a certain vulnerable spot. All that was heard was a muffled sound. The hearts of everyone present skipped in its wake. Shopkeep Jin's face quickly warped, but Wang Zhi took a rag out of nowhere and stuffed it into his mouth, preventing him from yelling even if he wanted to. The man could only make sobbing sounds. Hearing that noise, Tang Fan felt that something inside that certain area had burst. Out of a certain mental sympathy, he accordingly gave an expression of finding this too terrible to watch. Wang Zhi noticed. What's with that look? You're not the one I stomped on, he said disdainfully. It's distress. End chapter.